Ya son las 6, pero sigue habiendo mucha gente. Ya, güey. Espera un poquito más. Ya empieza. ¿Falta un minuto? Innovación, tendremos la conferencia magistral titulada The Power of Creativity and Problem Solving, a cargo del profesor Bernard Schroeder, director del Levin Entrepreneurship Center en San Diego State University y autor del libro Fail Fast or Win Big. Me permitiré presentarles al profesor Bernard Schroeder. Bernard Schroeder brings over 20 years of marketing and entrepreneurial experience, both as a senior partner in a 1 billion global integrated marketing agency as a former chief marketing officer on the client side. Today, Bernard is the director of Levin Entrepreneurship Center programs at San Diego State University, where he oversees all of the center's undergraduate programs. He is also the advisor of the campus-wide entrepreneurship minor. He has worked with hundreds of startups in San Diego, on and off the campus. He's a strategic advisor and mentor to several startups and is quoted frequently in both local and national media. He has spoken to several large events, including TEDx, and he has also spoken at the university events in Europe. He teaches several entrepreneurship courses, including Creativity and Innovation, Entrepreneurship Fundamentals, within the Fowler College of Business at San Diego State University. He has written 3 books on the entrepreneurship, creativity, and branding: Fail Fast or Win Big, Simple, Brilliant, and Brands and Bullshit. Démosle un aplauso a recibir al profesor Bernard Schroeder. Bienvenido.
So, I'm going to assume we have a very mixed group here tonight, and it's not all just about entrepreneurship. I didn't grow up thinking that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't even know what that meant. But let me ask this question as we start here. How many people in this room feel that you are creative? Okay, that's more than I usually see, maybe about 15, 20. When I ask the question in my creativity class, I get about 4 or 5 students that raise their hand because they're not sure how I'm defining creativity. So they're defining creativity by maybe standard convention. I can tell you that if we were using standard convention to define my creativity, I have none. I'm not an artist. I'm not a musician. I can't draw. I really can't build anything. If you gave me a lump of clay, I would return to you in 1 hour a lump of clay. I would not be able to build a vase. And yet, as I look at all the people that I've worked with, invariably, their attitude and their belief in being creative, which let's define in today's talk as being related to problem solving, okay? I'm not here to talk to you today about how you can become a musician, an artist, a dancer, a writer, a filmmaker. If you want to do that, go do it. I will tell you right now, you don't need to be born creative to do that. You can learn how to do that, right? I will tell you the common thread that I have seen in my life was people's ability to solve problems, you know? And for a lot of you, you're kind of like, yeah, it's problem solving, who cares? I can tell you right now, some of the most amazing companies in the world have been created because someone tried to solve a simple problem. You know, Dropbox. How many of you have heard of Dropbox? Okay, just storing crap in the cloud, right? And the cloud was probably coined by someone like me, sexy term from a marketing guy, on extra server space somewhere else, right? That's what the cloud means. But the reason that Dropbox got created is because when that founder was working, can't remember the company he was working at, it wasn't Dropbox, and he had a presentation, and he prepared a brilliant presentation on his computer, thought he saved it to a thumb drive, and then he got on the train to go to the next city, and he'd forgotten his thumb drive. So he gets to where he's going, he does not have the presentation. And he's like, this is insane. In the age of the internet, how is it that I can put videos online, I can put music online, but I cannot put files online and store them? That's ridiculous, right? So he sets about with a couple other engineers of just writing some simple code. In less than 48 hours, they wrote a simple web page and put files to it. And they were like, holy shit, this could work, you know? The difference between people like that and people like you is they will not stop until they solve the problem. That's it. And I don't care if the problem is food, I don't care if the problem is software, I don't care if the problem is mechanical, I don't care what the problem is. Some people will not stop. And then if the problem has a big market behind it, that's even better, right? So I define creativity as problem solving, right? And I'm going to go fairly quickly today because I'd actually like to take some questions from you. And normally I talk too long. Let's see how this works out. So this is who I am. What you don't see here exactly is that I'm an immigrant. I was born in Europe. I got my green card. I'm a citizen of the United States. I grew up with, parents that worked hard, came to this country, the U.S., with nothing, literally nothing. My father worked on a farm when he first came over. And so I didn't come from a place of wealth. I didn't come from a place of privilege. I'm like nobody. I'm nobody. I'm just another person who came over on a ship and landed in New York and looked at the country and said, where the hell am I, right? But one of the things that I believe has been a constant in my life, and if you say, how does all this happen? My level of curiosity is very high. I'm very, very curious. I've always been curious. The first job that I took coming out of college was with a marketing agency. I knew nothing about marketing. I got a management degree. And this particular agency said, we're doing something new. We're using computers with marketing. And I was like, what is that? And they said, it's this thing called database marketing, where we can send very specific messages via direct mail to certain people. And I remember going home and telling the person who's now my wife, but she was my girlfriend, I was like, I think I'm going to take that job. And because I had 3 job offers. And she said, but how much are they going to pay you? I said, they're going to pay me 1/3 of what the best job offer is offering me. 1/3. She goes, why would you take it? Are you stupid? I go, I'll be honest with you. I don't know anything about marketing. I don't know anything about computers, but I believe it's the future. I had no research that I had done to tell me it was the future. Just my instincts were telling me, this thing you know nothing about is part of the future, right? So these are some of the things that I've accomplished, and my curiosity has, I believe, this is all curiosity. I'm not telling you that I'm not talented. I'm badass when it comes to marketing and branding. I can create companies out of air because I've learned how to do it, okay? No one's born to do that. Is anybody in here, and this is a tough one, does anybody in here believe they were born to do something specific? Okay, good, because you're either intimidated by me asking the question or you actually believe, no, I wasn't born to do anything. I can do what I'd like to do. Good, because I certainly wasn't born to become an entrepreneur and to do what I'm doing today. I ended up there because I wanted to, right? So this is what I do today. Built a $1 billion company in Silicon Valley, took it public, was able to work with Steve Jobs at Apple, with Jeff Bezos at Amazon. Sounds cool when I say it. It's not cool. It's not cool. It was hard work, and I almost didn't take the phone call from Jeff Bezos at Amazon I was so busy at the time. I'd never heard of Amazon. Imagine you get a phone call in 1995 and somebody goes, yeah, some guy left you a voicemail, Amazon.com. I'm like, what the hell is Amazon.com? Who names a company after a river, right? Who does that? So I didn't call him back for like 2 days. When I finally call him back, I'm not even interested in what he's telling me. I'm listening, but I'm not interested. I go, what are you doing? I'm selling books. I look out my window, I'm in Portland, and I see Barnes & Noble outside my window. And I go, if I want a book, I'll walk across the street. Why are you selling books on the internet? I think people want to buy them. I go, will you sell your books for less? No. So you're not going to sell your books for less? No. But in the course of the conversation, he said he had gotten $7 million in funding from the venture capitalists, which we knew very well in Silicon Valley. So I thought, well, shit, I'll take his money. That was literally my attitude. And then we went on to build an amazing brand, worked with him for the first 3 years, and watched this thing called the internet explode. But I'll tell you what made me want to work with him other than the money. In that time period of 94 and 95, there were lots of ideas being thrown around for the internet. That was the first one I heard that made sense from a business point of view. It was the first one that said, I have a business model and I'm going to sell books around the world because they're not available to everyone around the world, and this is how I'm going to make money. I'm not going to print the books. I'm not going to distribute the books. I'm going to get the books from distributors. I'm going to just take the orders. I'm going to be cash flow positive. I'm not going to make money for a long time, but on day one, when somebody enters their credit card information, I'm going to be cash flow positive. And that was the first business model that I heard about the internet in that time period. And there was just this part of me that was like, no matter what, if this is going to be successful or not, this is the first business that you've seen, you know, pitched correctly on the internet. More important than me, you know, I don't know what you follow in your everyday life. I don't know what you want to be, and I don't know what you see. My ability of seeing things forward for people is that I'm very, very curious about the future. And I'm very, very curious about whatever I'm doing. So if I'm doing marketing, I'm very curious about marketing. If I was doing software, I'd be very curious about the edge of software. If I was a cook, I'd be very curious about the edge of cooking. If you want to be rewarded in life, be on the edge. Be on the edge of whatever is coming. Because if you're not on the edge, then you're average in terms of what you're focused on. Not average as a person. You're just not going to be an expert in something that's emerging, right? So my question of you is, you know, do you follow trends? I follow trends like crazy. I follow what people eat. I follow the music they consume. I follow fashion. I follow, you know, what's being done in different environments, right? Because I'm just curious. But that's what clients used to pay me for. Clients used to say, if you can see 6 things happening, tell us where we should be going, right? And they used to pay us millions of dollars to tell them that. You know, do you have people in your network that don't look like you? You want to be more creative in life? Then hang out with people that don't look like you. So if you're in the business school, hang out in computer science, film, and engineering. If you're in the engineering school, hang out with artists and musicians. I'm telling you, the different thinking is what creates creativity. And it creates problem solving. You can't take the same type of people, put them in a room, give them a problem. They're all going to have the same point of view. You want to be around different people, right? Curiosity. You know, do you try new things, drive a new way to school, change up your pattern? As humans, we become very pattern-like. My level of curiosity is still extremely high. I was teaching a class in Rome during winter break. Went to one of my favorite local restaurants. It's raining. I just want soup. There's a guy in front of me. He's from Asia, maybe 22, 23 years old. He's by himself. The hostess greets him, and as she starts to walk him to his table, I follow. So we get to the table where she's about to seat this gentleman, and I'm standing like right there. And she's like, I'll be with you in a minute. I go, no, I followed you here. So now she's thinking like he's a stalker, right? He just came into the restaurant. So this kid is now looking at me. And I look at him and I go, do you speak English? He goes, yes, I do. I go, where are you from? He goes, I'm from South Korea. I go, can I have lunch with you? He didn't know what to say. You know, I'm sure if security would have been around, he would have just called for security. Instead, because he's a little bit embarrassed, he says, okay. So I sit down at the table, introduce myself, and I go, I'm a professor at San Diego State. What do you do? He goes, I'm a college student from one of the top colleges in South Korea, and I'm on a sabbatical. I'm traveling across Europe. We had an amazing 1-hour lunch. He told me everything that was going on in South Korea. I told him everything stupid that was going on in California, right? That is still the level of my curiosity. Mindset. Do you have a fixed versus a growth mindset? What this means is some people believe they were born with intelligence, and some people believe they weren't. So if I take a child and I tell them they're stupid, eventually they'll believe it. And if I tell them, you're not good at math, eventually they'll believe it. How many of you were told when you were younger, your drawings suck? Right there. So he's not going to be an artist. He's going to back off. If you know, and so part of it becomes a pattern, part of it becomes a function of environment. But here's the good news, and this is research that's been shown this. You can choose to have the mindset you want. You can learn whatever you need to learn. Doesn't matter. You can learn it, right? And then you have to believe you're creative. And again, remember, creativity, as we're defining it today, is the ability to solve problems, you know? And I think everyone, given just a little bit of a good environment, can solve problems. Why focus on creativity? This was a study done in the US with 1,500 CEOs. What scares you about this slide? Look at it. What's scary? Pardon me? Okay. How about integrity? For the first time in the history of this survey, integrity is number 2. Integrity is the honesty and the character of a person. And the CEOs are now saying creativity is higher. How can anything be higher than honesty and integrity, right? Why do you think the CEOs are saying they need every new applicant they need for any job to be more creative? Why do you think they're saying that? Has nothing to do with money. Well, it does for the CEO eventually. Let me tell you why they said this. They say they're now moving so fast and markets are so competitive that they evaluate every hire based on their ability to solve problems. So if we hire someone for accounting, can they solve problems if it's not perfect? If we hire someone for shipping, if we hire someone for marketing, can they solve problems? Because it's so competitive now, we have to move faster. And in order to move faster, we have to be better at problem solving. You know, this is another study from the Jobs Report, World Economic Forum. In 2015, complex problem solving was number 1. In 2020, complex problem solving is still number 1, but look at creativity. Creativity went from 10 to number 3. And it's not about creating more entrepreneurs. I mean, some of you, maybe you'll be an entrepreneur. No one can decide but you. If you surround yourself with a good network and you take a little bit of risk. Like how many of you, if I gave you a free ticket, would go to Las Vegas? Okay, not too many. Good, maybe we don't have gamblers in the room. But I can take people that are afraid of risk and afraid of failing, and I can send them to Vegas and they'll bet their ass off. And they might lose all the money, right? They think they're gonna win, but when they lose, what do they remember? I had a great time. So this is on you, you know, if you ever want to be an entrepreneur. You have to have a growth mindset. You have to follow trends. You really do. You have to follow what's going on. And I don't mean in Mexico. I don't mean in TJ. I ran into a company in Portugal, in Lisbon. I was teaching a class. Anybody here ever work in a call center? You know, where the customer service people answer the phones and there's like 500 of you? So this kid took a summer internship and he worked in a call center. Now you just got to imagine a big ass room with tons of people answering the phones, right? And it's customer service. So one summer he did that. And he was like, this is crazy. And the managers were there. They were like, isn't our call center impressive? All these people, millions of dollars of hardware and equipment. He went back to Lisbon, wherever he was at when he did that internship. And he was like, if Skype can make calls through the internet, we can take customer service calls through the internet. And he created a company called TalkDesk, which has received more than $40 million in funding from Silicon Valley in Lisbon to absolutely kill call centers throughout the world and allow distributed calling and answering the phone through an internet browser. Now I don't need 500 people in a room. I can have someone sitting at home. I can have someone be anywhere, and they can just get the call routed to them. You have to understand, how companies are operating and saying, how can they take expense out of the company, And that's one of the things. It's one example. Make students do things not related to their major. I teach a creativity class at State. I don't honor any of their prerequisites. So I don't care who comes in. It's awesome. I have engineers, I have artists, I have graphic designers, I have film, I have business school. We have such a diverse class. It is the most diverse class in the business school because only about 15% of the students are from the business school. You start putting all those type of people together and then you give them crazy problems to solve, they come up with crazy answers, crazy good answers. So this is the framework that I teach, right? Growth mindset's critical. If you believe you were born with a certain capacity and you won't learn anymore, you're screwed. It's on you, though, because you can. So you have to adopt a growth mindset. And a growth mindset simply says, I can learn what I need to learn. I am not limited by my DNA or how smart my parents were or how brilliant my brother is. I can learn what I need to be successful, okay? And then habitat is important, leadership and culture, wherever you end up. If you work for a place and it's got terrible leadership and a terrible culture, the creativity there is going to suck. And if the creativity sucks, sooner or later that company will die because someone else will come along. Someone else will come along. I knew Reed Hastings when he started Netflix. I thought it was cute. He's going to do mail DVDs to the house, and he's going to compete with Blockbuster, which has DVDs at the stores. But Reed was like, I don't need 400 stores. I'll do it through the mail. But Bernie, that's not my play. If you look at the calculation of internet bandwidth, in 6 years, all I have to do is last for 6 years, I can stream a freaking movie online. And that's when I'm going to kill them. Blockbuster watched. They watched. If you were an investor in Blockbuster, you probably should go back and read their annual reports. Every annual report, I went back and read it. It's a great kind of obituary to do. Because you were kind of thinking to yourself, every single year, what was the board telling the investors? Every single year that Netflix was taking market share, right? So no one told Reed Hastings that he couldn't do it. No one told him that he needed to absolutely have stores. He was like, no, I don't. No, I don't. I'll solve the problem. What do people want? They want entertainment. When do they want it? Whenever they want it. Environment matters. That's the physical space you're in. And then brainstorming tools. One of the things I teach students, I teach them really how to solve problems, but you can't put people in a room and say, solve the problem. It's too hard. It's too hard. First of all, you have personalities. You have the alpha male, the alpha female. If there's a high-ranking manager in the room, nobody's going to say shit against what that person's saying, right? So you have all these dynamics. So I say, don't let the dynamics come in. Use brainstorming tools. I'm going to share 4 of them with you today, right? We talked about mindset. Guys, you just have to believe me. No matter what anyone has told you in your life, no matter what people tell you suck at, if you want to do something, you can figure out how to do it. It's funny because I had a student come up to me at the end of one of my semesters and she gave me a hug and I said, what's that for? And she said, all my life I've been told I'm not creative and it's why I'm in the accounting major. And I said, okay, what have you learned in this class? She goes, guess what? I've learned I'm not the most creative person in the room either. I've learned it. But I've learned I can manage a creative team to solve a problem. I like pressure. You guys like pressure? No, you don't. No, you don't. Pressure is a funny thing. When you have limited time to come up with the answer to a problem, you do your best work. If I gave you 2 weeks to solve a problem, you know when you'd start working on it? The last day. I mean, it's why assignments in my class, I don't tell students what the assignment is until there's only 2 to 3 weeks left. You know, because if I told them at the beginning of the semester, they'd never work on it anyway, so what's the point? So pressure is a funny thing. You actually want to be in an environment, if you have the right resources, of being in an environment where there's just the right amount of pressure, but with very creative people, people that actually have the talent, you know? So if you have low pressure, you're just wandering, you're on an exploration. We'll get there when we get there. Low pressure, low creativity, that's the worst, because then you feel like you're on a death march. You're just not going to get it done, right? No hope. High pressure, but not a good group, not a good creativity group, very frustrated. You know, they want us to solve this problem, but we don't have the right people. You know, and the more management puts pressure on you, the more you just feel like you're taking a beating, right? The best group is when you have a diverse group that has a fair amount of creativity and high pressure, because they get focused on a mission really quick. Everyone else really doesn't get focused on a mission. And a mission is why you're doing something in the first place. I was telling some students outside, if we went to New York right now and walked into the person sitting at the front desk at American Express, the person who would greet us, and we walked up to that person and said, "What is your mission at American Express?" I don't think he or she would know, because I don't think they know. When you know you have a mission, boy, you do amazing work. Talk to the people that are in companies. Who works at a company today where you think that company has such a powerful mission that you've bought into it that you lose track of how much time you spend there during a day? Anybody? Yeah, it's normal in Silicon Valley. If you say, well, what's so crazy about the Valley? Is because people are on a mission. Don't question if they're on a good mission. They're just on a mission, right? The engineers are crazy. The UI people are crazy. We need to create Dropbox. Why? We just do, and we can, you know? So they create what they can, not always what we need. It's kind of fascinating. But they, honestly, they're on a mission. You can walk in there at 8 o'clock at night. People are still there, right? You know what HR's biggest problem, human resources in Silicon Valley? Telling people to go home. Telling people to go home. That's a mission. I'm not saying you need to work your ass off and work crazy hours, but when you're doing something that you've bought into and you feel like you're on a mission and you're with a talented team, it doesn't feel like work. I don't know about you. I worked. I went to college for a year and I quit. My parents went nuts. I was going to be the first kid in the family to get a college degree. Went to a private school. Parents paid a lot of money. I go to University of Michigan for a year and I hated it. You know why I hated it? I didn't understand my mission. And I had no one around me to calm me down. So my response to a problem, I walk away from it, right? I worked for the next 4 or 5 years, really understanding work, right? And I really loved some of the things that I did. I knew it wasn't forever. But when I came back and I graduated and I took that marketing job, I think it was the last day I worked. I loved that job. I went in on Saturdays and Sundays for the first year so I could write code, so I could extract data from a database. You're probably thinking, this guy's insane. I wanted to make myself valuable. There was no one else in marketing that knew how to write code. So I was able to write my own reports. I didn't need IT. That made me one of the most powerful people in the company, and I'd only been there a year. That's crazy. That's crazy. I had a CEO coming to me, can you write a report for me? I'm like, sure. Sure, CEO, I can write a report for you. This is what a box looks like. In your life, you really want to end up in the upper right. You want to be on a mission. You want to try. You can't, it doesn't just happen, guys. In your life, you have to kind of take control, right, of what you can. Personally, you should have a mission, right? What's your mission right now? Pardon me? Do a career? No, that's not your mission. Where are you in life right now? Are you attending school? Did you graduate? When did you graduate? When? I'm putting him on the spot. It's not working out. Here's my point. Missions get broken down into short things you can control. So if someone's in school, what's your mission if you're in school? What's your mission in school? Your mission in school is to graduate and to network the shit out of everyone at the school. That's a short-term mission that you can own. Because that networking you do and coming to events like this, you might meet someone that's going to change your life. Break your missions down into 6 to 12 months that you can control. You can say you have a mission isn't a goal. A mission is what you're doing right now. Your goal might be to have an amazing career. Your goal might be to do X. What is your mission right now? Oh, my mission is to graduate from the school on time with a high GPA and X. And what's your mission in the summer? My mission in the summer is to get a hell of a good internship. Break your goal down to little missions that you can control, right? Craft your values, diversify your crowd, no politics or BS. You know how you can bullshit people to tell them you're doing good and you may or may not be doing good? It's a waste of time. If you're bullshitting people about where you're going and what you're doing with your life, those people don't mean anything to you anyway. You're just trying to impress someone. It's a complete and utter waste of time. Don't waste your time. Get real and do the things that matter, okay? Work with everyone, well and wisely, and be gracious. You don't have to take anybody down to do well. In your life, who are you competing with? Who do you think you're competing with? No. Very good. You're competing with yourself. The day that you start to think you're competing with someone else is the day you start to lose. Because now you're measuring yourself against them. You're not measuring yourself against your potential. It's a big problem, right? But our egos get in the way, right? I used to think like that. If you and I were in the same room competing for the same job, I would think of nothing but figuring out ways to screw you, right? And it took me years and years to understand in good mentorship what a waste of time that was, that I should bring you along. I should bring you along, right? Anybody in here wearing Stance socks? Anybody? I know, you think of all the companies that could get created. Who would create a sock company in 2009? So Stance socks just went over 300 million in the US. Anybody have colorful socks on? You know how the trend started about 5-7 years ago where socks got really cool, different colors? Anybody doing them? Mine aren't. He's got them, right? Now, how do those socks make you feel? Warm. What he won't tell you is he actually thinks there's a little bit of cool, just a little bit of cool coming with that sock. And I remember sitting with the CEO, who was the CEO of Reef Sandals. Anybody know who Reef Sandals is? Make a decent sandal company. And I said to him, the first thing I said to him is, why did you create a sock company, right? Because you can. They looked at a $4 billion market in the US for black and white socks. And if you say, where did they get the inspiration for a sock company? They went to Walmart and Target. And they walked up and down all the aisles in Walmart and Target, and they made notes. What is generically bland, meaning doesn't stand out, and what is overpriced? And they made a list of 40 things, just walking through Walmart and Target. That's overpriced. We could do that. That's bland. They would get to the men's sock aisle. The only options for socks 10 years ago in the men's sock aisle was white and black. And they sucked, for the most part, the sock quality. So they were like, if that's a $4 billion aisle, why can't we make a better sock, make them more artistic? We think we can create a brand, So today they're 300 million, headed for $1 billion. They just introduced men's underwear. Now they're going to do women's performance underwear. I don't exactly know what that means. But they see it as a big market. And that's what really good entrepreneurs do. Really good entrepreneurs don't come up with ideas. They study markets and they solve problems. They don't sit around dreaming of a company they could create. They study big markets. Because if you create something this big in a $4 billion market, that's a $40 million company. That's why they do it. Freedom and accountability. I asked him how he runs a company. He said, we hire the best and the brightest people. And then we give them all the freedom to do their job. I go, what does that mean? He goes, there's no sick days. There's no vacation days. There's no annual performance review. I go, how does it work? He goes, the company runs itself. Because if I put this person in accounting and he's a slacker, the rest of the accounting department goes up to him and says, you're smart, you're slacking, cut it out. He doesn't need to do anything. So he says, if you want to work in a great company, I will give you the freedom to do your work with no bullshit. No stupid management here. But I'm going to hold you accountable to do a great job. And I'm going to pay you well. Can you do that? Surprisingly, some people can't do that. Some people need a lot of management. But if you were the type of person that wanted the freedom to do great work, and you weren't afraid of being accountable, you would love to work for a company like that, right? This is an actual office at Pixar. And we worked with Pixar in the early days, before Steve came back to Apple. And if you think, okay, this is kind of stupid, is it? Sometimes I think you're a function of your environment. If you work in a shitty workspace, it's a shitty workspace. There's no two ways around it. It is what it is. Is it creative? I don't know. Does it make you think good thoughts when you're there? At a minimum, you know, and these are some of the values, right, around the habitat. You have to have trust up and down. People are equal. The company values people. It offers learning. And they mixed people up. They put engineers next to artists, next to software, next to sales. They put them together. They mixed them up. They didn't want them in separate departments, right? Because as soon as you separate departments in a company, you kind of get this pull and push thing going on between departments. Well, accounting said, well, you know the guys in sales are idiots. You know, you don't want that. So each employee is allowed to design their own office at Pixar. This person built what looks like a little shed. Brainstorming the right way has to be, you know what the toughest part of brainstorming? People agreeing on the problem. People agreeing on the problem. I've spent so much time with the Fortune 500 where people would get pulled into a room. We have to work on this problem. They put 10 people in a room, 3 hours. Honestly, I don't think we ever agreed on what the problem was. We tried to start brainstorming immediately, right? You cannot brainstorm until everyone in the room agrees on what the problem is, right? And the problem that most people see is not the real problem. I remember talking to someone at IBM, and he was a regional vice president, and he said, I'm having a tough quarter. I said, what's going on? He goes, my sales are down. So what's the problem? We don't know yet. You think the problem is sales are down? That's not the problem. That's the result of the problem. Eventually, we narrowed it down to one vendor that couldn't deliver software on time. One vendor. And it cost him sales. Had nothing to do with sales. Sales wasn't the problem. Understand whether something is a symptom or something is a real problem, right, before you start. In my class, in the second class setting, so that I can neutralize all the alphas, the males and females, I give them a problem, and then I give them sticky notes, and I give them each a board, and I tell them they cannot talk to solve the problem. They cannot talk. Guess what? The alpha males and females can't talk. It's awesome. That means everybody has a voice on a piece of paper. Now they have to write everything down and communicate that way, right? So we said creativity was about problem solving, at least the way I define it, okay? So I'm going to go into some of the tools. Have any of you heard of Blue Ocean Strategy? This is a cool freaking tool. If this was 2009, okay, and we were sitting around going, do we like taxis? No. What don't we like about taxis? Well, some of them are clean, some of them aren't. Some of them take credit card for payments, some of them don't. They're rude, they're this, they're that. What if we could create a new type of company that could move people? Okay, do we have money for cars? No. So, what do we eliminate? We eliminate the cars. We're going to be a taxi company with no cars. Freaking awesome. What would we raise? Let's do something the industry doesn't do. Let's take payments on demand, right? However someone wants to pay us. What would we reduce? What would we create? I'm telling you right now, I believe if we would break up and go into separate rooms, we would have created Uber. We would have created Uber. Because we were trying to solve a problem where we didn't have the cars, we didn't have the money for the cars. Eventually, someone would have said, could we unite people with cars through an app? I'm telling you, we would have done it. Because Uber was created by accident. The founders of Uber wanted to create a private limo company. That's how it got started. It didn't get started to replace taxis or be a competitor to taxis. It just ended up there. This is what I keep talking about, going back to studying problems, right? This is another tool. I don't know if any of you have heard of this tool. This is where you take something that exists and you do all these things to it. You substitute something, you combine it, you adapt it, you modify or magnify it, you put it to another use, you eliminate something, you reverse or you rearrange it. Anybody here ever use Swifter? It's a mop to clean up messes on a floor. Do you know how it was created? So Procter & Gamble, which is the company, household retail brand name company, they hired a company in Silicon Valley called IDEO, and they said, we're losing market share in the mop space. And mops are old, they're made out of the string, right, the old-fashioned mops. And they said, we need a next generation mop. So they hired this company to go find out. So this company, in their wisdom, they went into about 30 homes, and they made a small mess on the floor, and then they stepped back. And they said, how would you clean that? This one person took a handy wipe, wrapped it around a sponge mop, cleaned up the little mess, rinsed out the handy wipe in the sink, and put the sponge mop away. That's where Swifter came from. Oh, the way we're going to solve the problem of small messes, we're going to have disposable wipes. So don't think this was some engineer sitting somewhere dreaming this up. They watched people in a house how they would solve the problem of a small mess, right? So Scamper is kind of cool. What I do with the students is I give them something that exists today, and I ask them to create something else by going through this exercise, right? So I might say, I want a next generation pen. I want a next generation X. Put it through this exercise. Tell me what it looks like. You can't just put people in a room and say, dream of something better. Give them tools that can just deconstruct the current product or service and then rearrange it. Mind map and observation lab. Mind map is kind of cool because you put the problem in the middle, and then you put the things that are associated to the problem around it, and then you go out to the very edges and you say what's good or bad about that main branch. So in this case, this company had people missing work. So they have too many employees that are missing work, right? So what's the problem? Missing work? No. Why are they missing work? So they track it back to, we think it's the health of our employees. So they say, well, what makes up health? Sleep, stress, exercise, and diet. Okay, well, let's go out. What's the benefits of sleep? What's the negatives of sleep? And eventually, they get to things, see the thing that says comfy mattress up at the top? There's a company in San Diego that did a survey of their employees, and they bought them all brand new mattresses because they wanted them to sleep better. They thought if they sleep better, they'll be happier at work. You might think it's crazy. It's not so crazy. How many of you, I mean, in Silicon Valley and San Diego, it's kind of wacko. My daughter works at a place where they have a yoga person come in or a massage person every other day. I mean, excuse me, you might think none of that matters. It does matter. It does matter. People might not miss work if they know the yoga person's coming in. Another thing I tell students, do an observation lab, and that's observe people. Observe exactly now for the first time in your life. I send them out in the community, and they'll observe an Apple store, they'll observe a restaurant, they'll observe a bar. Now for the first time, they're coming back and they're telling me what they're really seeing. The color of their place, the mood, the smell, the music, everything that's going on. And while they're doing that, I'm asking them, find 2 problems at this place of business by simply watching it. They come back and they find the most amazing things. And you know, the kind of things that, honestly, I want to send to the CEOs of some of these companies because the CEOs don't see it, because they don't observe. The early part of my career, when I did marketing for Mercedes-Benz, on the weekends I would go to other car dealerships and I would act like a buyer. So I would go to BMW, I would go to Audi, I would eventually go to Lexus and Infiniti, and I would walk in and just act stupid. Like I'm just a person who wants to buy a car, right? And I studied, how did they approach me? Did they have the sales training? Did they handle me correctly? And then I would go back to the people at Mercedes and say, we need to do 2 things differently. And they'd be like, how do you know? I visited 60 dealerships. What do you mean 60 dealerships? Yeah, the last 6 months I visited 60 of our competitors. This is what they're doing well, this is what they're not doing well, this is what we have to do. I remember the general manager of Mercedes looking at me and going, I don't think I visited 60 of my dealerships. I'm thinking, how do you know? Are you just going to read research reports or listen to what people tell you? So my whole career, I've been a real fan of observing. I observe hard. And I don't go looking for anything, but I observe, right? I mean, the funniest thing that I had in my class was I had these 2 guys that were like total alpha male frat boys, and I had these 2 girls from France that were just the hottest looking girls in class. The problem that the boys didn't know is that they were also the 2 smartest people in the class. They were very smart. So when the girls chose to do the observation lab at Victoria's Secrets, the guys were like, ha ha ha, this will be cool. So they go into Victoria's Secrets. The girls are extremely confident. The guys are like, they don't know what to do. Saleswoman comes up to one of the guys, can I help? No, I'm good. No, I'm good. You know, because they're a little embarrassed, they're a little nervous. The girls started studying all the men that came in that store and watching them. And you know what recommendation they made to Victoria's Secrets? Open up a guy's bar in Victoria's Secrets. You know, like you have a Genius bar at Apple Store? Not like a bar that serves drinks. Just a bar for men that you would walk up like, hey, I'm here at Victoria's Secrets and I need, you know, like you'd remove all that uncomfortableness, right? I thought it was a brilliant observation because they noticed how men were afraid to ask for help, well, not only there, but pretty much in life, and then how they were just not in their element and they couldn't get their head around it, right? So, pardon me? I don't... I don't know what the problem is, to be honest. We don't have enough time to delve into that problem. So here's what I see, you know, going on in the world. I see massive opportunities, right? I see baby boomers. I'm using the U.S. here, by the way, for right now. 75 million, trillions of dollars, and you don't believe we're going to die. I mean, we're going to spend it all as we try to figure out how to live. Millennials are coming, 81 million, 2025 in the U.S. That's between the ages of 18 and 35. They want it now. They want to live, and they travel now. But I say, what is Apple? What is the next Apple offering? What is the next Uber? What's the next Amazon? What's the next Facebook? You know, new opportunities are fueled by this growth mindset and a creative culture. If you're not studying how the world's working and how it's not working well, then you're not paying attention. This is you in life. No, it's sad. I would bet 80% of people live this kind of life. They just walk through life. I work for a paycheck. I eat food every day. I go to sleep, and then I hit repeat. You don't have to do that. You think you do, but you don't have to, right? Emerging trends, it's a small slide, guys, but this is what I pay attention to. I have a Google Alert set up on every one of these. Google Alert is a free service from Google that sends you an email once a week. These are my terms, because I don't have time anymore to research and go out online, so everything comes to me. I just set up a number of alerts. I'm paying attention to Internet of Things. I'm paying attention to all the energy changes. I'm watching wearable. I'm watching autonomous. I'm watching the rental economy. I mean, we're renting from Uber. We're renting homes. What are we going to rent next, right? I'm watching entertainment. I'm watching organic and natural food take over, right? I'm just watching all of this, not to see one by themselves, but to see where they connect to each other, because that's where the opportunities are. So, one of the things I do every summer is I work in Trep Camp. How many people do we have in here that went through Trep Camp? All right, we've got a few. So Trep Camp is a program that's put on by a group in Silicon Valley, one of the largest Mexican banks, and the U.S. government. And we bring 500 students from Mexico to the United States every summer at 8 different universities. And we teach them in 3 weeks how to solve big problems, right? I can't teach someone how to be an entrepreneur, but I can teach them how to solve problems, right? These are some of the problems they work on. This isn't like me just throwing up slides. Food waste in the U.S. is 40%. Why? Is there a solution? That's a $160 billion market. What industry could you disrupt with Internet of Things? The next generation of entertainment is what? How would you enhance education with AR or VR, right? Augmented reality or virtual? How do we reduce energy consumption in big cities by 10%? I don't know what's going on in Mexico, but everybody is moving into big cities in the United States. All the millennials want to live in big cities. They are not buying houses out in the suburbs. How do we use AI, data analytics, or gaming to affect diabetes in the world? I had a group this last year. They came up with a VR game almost similar to the Nintendo game, where they incented and motivated little kids to do things, and by doing things they'd have to walk 6,000 to 8,000 steps a day. It was genius in terms of what they were doing. The whole thing looked like a game, and they were doing it to combat obesity. And the data was being fed back to their parents, you know, whoever else. I thought it was genius. How do we provide people with more clean water? We have a student at San Diego State, and it could have been anywhere. Do you have bees dying in Mexico? Yeah, we have bees dying everywhere in the U.S. I don't understand what's going on. So this student has been watching drones. And she built a nano drone. Then she connected with a computer science kid, and they wrote some software to recognize flowers. The drone flies from flower to flower, pollinating like a bee. It's smaller than this. You might say, that's crazy. I don't know. Is that crazy? That if bees are dying and we need pollination to eat, that we don't develop nano drones that pollinate flowers and crops? I don't know. It's a big problem, though. 3D printers to improve someone's life. Did you see the thing on 60 Minutes the other day, or just randomly, how these guys were printing houses with concrete out of Europe? They were able to print a house in 11 hours. Just take a big 3D printer that you can load with concrete and print an entire house. And they're studying, is it possible to go to other places where people don't have good housing and start printing homes using concrete, you know, through a big printer. That might sound crazy 10 years ago, 20 years ago. It's not so crazy now, right? So, I'll take some questions after I'm done, but this is my summary for today. 1, you have to believe you're creative, no matter what you're doing. There's an ounce of creativity in you that you can fuel, and with some curiosity and some knowledge, you can jack it. Okay? You don't need to be the most creative person in the room. You just have to believe that you could lead a creative team to solve a problem. Okay? You have to be curious. I don't know any other way to put it. You have to be curious about things. You have to investigate things. You have to try things that are different. You have to go places that are different. You have to do things that are different. You have to hang around with different people, right, if you want different thinking. You have to have a growth mindset, meaning you can learn. You should never stop learning, ever, right? If you ever get into an amazing culture, nurture and protect it. You have to understand trends and their opportunity, because that's where opportunity is, actually. Use frameworks and tools to solve problems. Don't just put people in a room and try to brainstorm. It's very, very difficult. And then be the most creative person you can be. Look for problems. And if you're lucky enough to solve those problems, that will actually is the #1 thing that will lead to more innovation. Thank you. All right, I'll take a few questions. So I'm a full-time director at the Entrepreneurship Center. I do teach. I teach 2 or 3 different courses. I teach once during the year. I teach out of country on purpose. And then if I find something interesting, something challenging, I do a side project. Not because I'm doing it for the money, but because I want to see if I can. Like when Warren Buffett bought Prudential California Real Estate 4 or 5 years ago, I got a phone call from the CEO saying, we don't know how to rebrand an $11 billion company. Can you put together a team and do it? And I thought, wow, this is awesome. Like, I can't even do it all. I have to hire a team. So long story short, for 9 months, at 7 o'clock every morning, I would meet in their offices, and we put together an amazing team, and we handled the transition. When I like the people, and I like the challenge, I do it. But I have to like both. I can't work with assholes anymore in my life. So if I think someone's an asshole, in a good or bad way, meaning the idea is stupid, that the solution is stupid, or they won't even listen to me. You know how people can hire you and not listen to you? It's really ridiculous. So if I decide one of those 2 things isn't there, I won't do it. So I've helped other people for free. I've helped other people I've met that I liked. They can't afford me. And I'll be like, I'm going to help you. And I've helped build $25 million companies. No equity, no payment. I'm just paying it forward, right? You guys understand the pay it forward notion? Where you help someone, hoping that then they will help someone, right? And that's why you do it. Another question.
Here.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question. I'm wondering, how did you turn your creativity into a business and your problem solving? How does somebody from a university come out, and if they're good at it and they really focus on it, how do they market that to reach their
I don't
clients?
think you market it.
How does it happen then?
So the question he's asking is, can you take creativity and turn it into a skill or a career? And I would say the answer is no. What you're really doing is you're fueling your ability to solve problems. I mean, I'm standing up here today and talking to you about creativity and innovation. Honestly, like, I shouldn't be. I've told you what the thread in my life is that's allowed me to be successful. I'm extremely curious, and guess what I got good at? No. What did I get really good at? No. Talking is something that you do, but it shouldn't be why you live. Solving problems. I learned early in my marketing career that if you solved a problem for a marketer and sold more cars, they gave you more money. I was like, this is awesome, So I got really good, whether it was Kellogg's, anybody, even Amazon. How do we launch an internet company that sells books that's not for less online? Shit, if I know. Let's see if we can solve that problem. You know how we solved the problem for Amazon? We said, who delights us in our life? And I'd always been a fan of small hotels because I like the doorman. I like the concierge. They remember you when you come back. They get things for you when you've gone to a city and you've forgotten something. We modeled the business model of Amazon and the one-click login and the reviews after a concierge at a small boutique hotel. I'm not lying to you. That's how we did it. So that was how we solved the problem of positioning Amazon online, and they weren't going to sell books for less. We're going to kill them with service. We're going to kill them with service. That was the only option. Now, how do we do it? That's the problem we had to solve. So I just got really, really good at solving problems. Yeah. Oh, I had a massive failure. Like 3 years into my marketing career, I made a huge mistake. I was doing some work for Nikon, and I got lazy. I hired a good team, but I got lazy. I wasn't really watching the team every day. You know, I was like, look at me, I'm a badass. Like, I have a team that does all the work, and I don't have to do anything. Well, we made a mistake, and it was a big mistake. Nikon's response to the mistake was they were going to sue the marketing company that I was working for. I can laugh now. It wasn't funny then. They were going to sue this little company for $100 million based on the mistake. I went to that meeting with the CEO of our company thinking this will be a good trip to New York because this will be my last trip to New York. I had never gone anywhere with our CEO, but Nikon demanded that we come. So we went, and I had found a problem. I found a solution to the problem. I contacted the US Mail Department, and I found out what happens when you send something out wrong, that you can correct it if you send it out within a certain period of time, registered mail. So I had solved the problem. Nikon started screaming at us. They were just screaming at us. I mean, when you sit there with your CEO and they're screaming at your CEO, you're so embarrassed, right? And they get to the end of the conversation, and the CEO turns to me and he says, Bernie, what's the solution to this problem? And I go, well, John, the solution to the problem is we have to do an extra mailing, and we have to notify everybody that we said this one thing that it's actually something else. And that by law in the United States is the solution to the problem. The Nikon people didn't want to hear it. The attorney's like, we're suing you, you're a dead man, blah, 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 blah. I go, no, that's the solution. I apologize, you can fire us, but that is the solution. I remember when we walked outside, at the end it was probably the most intense meeting in my life. I had worn a suit to the meeting, and I had sweated through the suit. Completely through the suit. Like through the shirt, through the suit, right? I remember sitting in the back of a town car. We're going to get taken back to the airport, and I'm just waiting for the CEO to go, you're fired. You're fired. You know, I can't believe you made this mistake. And he looks over at me, and he loosens his tie, and he goes, well, that was one hell of a meeting. And I go, I don't know what to say, right? What do you say to that? You just go, yeah. You know, you don't say anything else. And then he goes, and he doesn't even look at me. He's looking straight. He goes, Bernie, I'm not going to fire you. And I'm thinking to myself, did he just say he wasn't going to fire me? Or he was going to fire me? And he said he understood how the problem happened. He loved the way I solved the problem, but that if I ever made the same problem twice, he would fire me. And I fired the team. Why did I fire the team? No. No. They didn't quite tell me the truth about the problem, so I could no longer trust them. You can make mistakes at work, but if someone stops trusting you, you're done there. I could no longer trust them. I had to start over because they lied to me. They lied to me. As I dug down and found out how the problem happened, I found out they cut corners and they lied. And as soon as I found out about it, I thought, well, it's my fault for letting it happen, but I can no longer trust them. And there's a lot of things that you can put up with in your life from people that work for you. Trust is one, there's no substitute. Once you don't trust someone, that's it. That's it. All right, one last question. You know, Alex keeps coming over here. He's my counterpart at the center. I see all the activities. We just brought some people down here for a Baja tour related to our educators conference. I think if the right people get together in the city, you know, government, private, you can create whatever you want down here. I was telling people before, I don't understand Mexico. I like the people, lots of land, houses so messed up at times. But then I tell people about how messed up Italy is. Right? I mean, I was just in Italy, and they have unemployment almost worse than yours. You know, you might not think that, they do, right? They have 25% unemployment amongst people between 25 and 35. 25% with a college degree. That's crazy, right? So my hope and aspiration is we continue to do more things cross-border, right? And that you guys, I mean, if I could wish one thing for Mexico, I wish you guys could become badass coders. Because if you became known as a software resource that was the best, and we're near shore to you, guess what? We're not going to Europe anymore, India for code. We're coming to Mexico. And if you do that, you'll rise, because in order to become excellent coders, it means you'll be graduating more computer science majors. And the more computer science majors you graduate, the more they're going to break shit. And the more they break shit, the more they're going to create the next Dropbox. So I don't know what your country's going to do over time, but if anybody said to me, Bernie, what is the one thing Mexico should focus all of its energy on? I would be like, don't just focus on technology as a goal. Educate the majority of the population around technology. All right, thank you.
Como agradecimiento por su participación en las actividades del Día de la Innovación, le pedimos al alumno de la carrera de Licenciatura en Inteligencia de Negocios e Innovación, Francisco Torres, que haga entrega de un reconocimiento para el profesor Schroeder, nuestro conferencista magistral del día. Este reconocimiento se realiza por su valiosa contribución a la experiencia formativa de los estudiantes, emprendedores, maestros y comunidad en general que el día de hoy nos acompañan.
El reconocimiento dice así: el Centro de Enseñanza Técnica y Superior, a través de la Escuela de Administración y Negocios y Licenciatura de Inteligencia de Negocios e Innovación, otorga el reconocimiento al profesor Bernard Schroeder por su valiosa participación como expositor en la primera edición del Día de la Innovación de CETIS Universidad, en el marco de la celebración mundial del Día de la Creatividad y la Innovación, organizada por los estudiantes de la Licenciatura en Inteligencia de Negocios e Innovación. Firma la doctora Celsa Guadalupe Vélez, directora de la Escuela de Administración y Negocios, y el maestro Jaime Eduardo Moncada Garibay, coordinador académico de la Licenciatura en Inteligencia de Negocios, Tijuana, Baja California, 23 de abril del 2018.
Thank you. Are we taking a picture? Thank you so much. I appreciate being here. I mean, when I wrote my first book, someone asked me, who are you writing a book for called Fail Fast? And I always said it was for the person I would never meet. I got an email from a gentleman in South Africa who told me how he was now selling solar lights in his village because he read my book. It's not about the book, guys. It's about the fact that you inspire someone you will never meet. That is the kindest respect you will ever get in your life, is when you change someone's life and you will never meet them.
Para dar por finalizado el evento del día de hoy, invito al maestro Jaime Moncada, coordinador académico de la Licenciatura en Inteligencia de Negocios e Innovación, a que brinde un mensaje de clausura.
Muchas gracias, Estefanía. No me resta más que agradecerles que hayan atendido a la invitación a presenciar, asistir a este primer encuentro en el tema de la innovación. Les agradezco mucho que hayan atendido a esta invitación. México, nuestro país, como pudimos darnos cuenta en el transcurso de todas las charlas del día de hoy, ya no puede competir en un mundo globalizado basándose solamente en la productividad. Ahora, la innovación, la inteligencia en los negocios y la creatividad tienen que convertirse ya en las nuevas palabras clave. Si queremos seguir compitiendo en un mundo cada vez más globalizado, tendremos que orientarnos cada vez más hacia una economía basada en el conocimiento. Debemos realizar y enfocar mayores esfuerzos para combatir el problema que México no sea capaz a menudo de transformar el desarrollo tecnológico en productos y procesos comerciales. Así que esperamos que en los foros como los acontecidos el día de hoy, aquí en CETIS Universidad, abonen al cumplimiento e intentar lograrlo cada vez más y de mejor forma. CETIS Universidad, como institución de alta calidad académica y educativa, seguirá promoviendo foros de encuentro donde se debatan y compartan las ideas que promuevan un pensamiento crítico, analítico, creativo y estratégico. Para finalizar, a nombre de CETIS Universidad y de nuestros estudiantes de la licenciatura en Inteligencias, Negocios e Innovación, deseamos reiterar nuestro agradecimiento a los maestros que en el marco de su clase permitieron que asistieran a estas actividades. Habrá quien se incorporó a estas actividades ahorita a las 6 de la tarde, pero tenemos aquí desde las 10 de la mañana, con conferencistas que vinieron de Guadalajara, de Sinaloa, hubo quien vino de Estados Unidos, hubo una conexión ahí con emprendedores de Argentina, de Chile, de México, de Guadalajara. Entonces fue un encuentro realmente intenso, realmente interesante y espero que de mucho provecho. Así que, siendo las 19 horas con 10 minutos del día lunes 23 de abril del 2018, damos por clausurado los trabajos del primer evento del INI denominado Día de la Innovación. Muchas gracias y buenas noches.
Antes de que